Fallout New Vegas has a lot of weapons ranging from a peashooter to a nuclear devastation device. The same applies for the game's melee weapons, and often found on the peashooter spectrum is a standard Switchblade. Doing a pitiful 7 damage per attack when not boosted by skills, this weapon is not intended to be used for the entire game. But what if we wanted to? Get your thigh highs on, because we're about to find out if you can beat Fallout New Vegas with only a Switchblade. I gave myself the name of a professional switch before making myself beautiful in the same way as always, and selecting my special stats. Strength is a little bit of a no-brainer. The higher the strength, the more melee damage we do, so I set it at 9. A perception of 5 isn't necessary, but it does give us flexibility if we later decide we want better criticals. We don't care about endurance when we can have more damage, so I only tease it just a little bit before dumping charisma and raising luck to 9. Critical hits do more damage than a standard hit, so we're going to want as many of those as possible to ensure that this run doesn't cause me to smash my head into a brick wall. Medicine, melee weapons, and science were all chosen for my tag skills so that way I could have an easier time with early game skill related quests, while also being able to do a little bit of damage. My traits are Logan's Loophole and Skilled for no addictions and more points to play with. One could argue that Heavy Handed would have been a better pick instead of a crit build, but I went with what I was comfortable with because I'm not here to get wedgies like I was in high school. Checking my difficulty, cooking some chems, and participating in one of my favorite pastimes, I still have a bunch of things to chat. This nets me a few supplies, most notably food, buff out, and a magazine for barter that I will probably never use. Staying in Good Springs a little while longer, I grabbed the magazines and alcohol on the side of the room of the Prospector Saloon. It's important to not underestimate the power of skill books and booze. Grabbing some Sunset and hitting the road harder than I hit my leg anytime I do something stupid, I grabbed some loot in the Black Widow perk and Gene skydiving. I don't ever end up using this perk in conversation, but I can't argue with an extra 10% of damage against 90% of our enemies. Another stem pack and some explosive disarming later, I loot the buildings in Prim for my prized possession. My heart wept profusely, yearning to one day grasp the toothpick's black textured handle, and to be within its tasteful aura. The pain I felt radiated to my knees as I crawled around on the dusty ground until I crept upon the skeleton of a man. Delight filled me to the core as I embraced its soul. Much to my surprise, this weapon didn't do too bad when dispatching the 2 targets outside of Prim's old casino. As a matter of fact, you could say that its personality was disarming. I sold a bunch of goods to Nash, including ammo which I had no use for, and grabbed another Switchblade from the open safe where the registers are at. Drinking some delicious H2O, I butchered the jackals at the Prospector's Den and I had my first opportunity to truly use this weapon. While I would much rather be using Chance's knife at this point in the game, for players interested in following a natural progression, this weapon certainly isn't terrible. When playing on very hard difficulty, most weapons struggle to get through enemies regardless of how good they do the whole murder thing, but this guy definitely has a bit of potential if we grab the right perks. I kill some scorpions that sound a lot like dogs before popping over to Prim Pass. This area can be highly deadly to new players that are inexperienced worthless pieces of trash, but I'm able to get through it completely unscathed on the first try. What can I say, I'm built sturdy like a bubble. Running by Ranger Station Charlie, I hit up Cliff for any more Switchblades. Unfortunately, he doesn't have any, and I bought only a few Rad-X and stem packs for my troubles. Walking upstairs is hard work. While old Lady Gibson doesn't have any Switchblades either, she does have almost 1,000 caps, which allows me to sell most of my gear that I've been hoarding so far. In addition, she's able to repair my Switchblades. One advantage about using lower level weapons is that you can repair them for much cheaper than what you can with their rare counterparts. Wanting a little bit of experience, I start up the That Lucky Old Sun quest and talk with Fantastic and Anacia before stepping outside to turn on both of the terminals. After doing so and brutally fighting 3 dogs with what is essentially a toothpick, I level up to grab perhaps the most important perk in the early game of Fallout New Vegas: Comprehension. A lot of people underestimate this perk, but to be able to utilize skill books to complete quests that you wouldn't normally otherwise be able to do, it's a godsend. Inside, I utilize the turrets to be able to kill their best friends, and for whatever reason have a decent amount of trouble in this area. Not being able to kill enemies with the pulse-based weapons that I've grown so fond of over the years really makes me sad. Sorry for being so emotional. I end up having to go back and grab a piece of scrap metal from one of the Protectrons, so I spent a decent amount of time bashing metal on metal. How erotic. After redirecting the power and thus finishing the quest, I kill some ants for some experience and find myself in Boulder City. Here, with the power of a Meeting People magazine, I'm able to convince Jessup to ease the tension with the NCR. After all that jazz, I grab the gear from the Crimson Caravan guards next to the wreckage, and it is here where I end up meeting the NCR Ranger who gives you the emergency radio. I always find it funny when this guy pops up just because he shows up in the most uncanny places, like my mom's bedroom. At Vendertron, I frothed at the mouth with being unable to purchase any of his weaponry despite my large cap count, before stepping inside a Freeside. Here I was able to somehow disarm somebody who was armed with spiked knuckles. My jaw dropped when I saw the piece of metal fly off of him. For this run, I actually managed to get through Vegas the correct way before talking with Mr. Holdout Man instead of ignoring him to purchase the Switchblade. Grabbing as many of these as possible is going to be beneficial for this run as it decreases the need for stopping for repairs and ensures that I can do the max of what little damage I have. Dwank inside the tops is more than happy to style out his old best friend, and I stab Benny to death for the platinum chip. At this point, I'm still really not sure who I'll be siding with for this run, but I did talk with Yes Man to unlock quite a lot of his dialogue. An important perk that I picked up that synergizes great with the high attack speed supplied by the Switchblade is Super Slam. It may not be a great weapon, but due to its fast speed, we can trigger a Super Slam much more frequently than say a heavier melee weapon. After getting done with the tops and being a bottom for sure, I decided that I wanted a little bit more experience to unlock some of the better melee perks. This is done by talking with the King, stabbing auras close to 200 times, talking with Julie and Elizabeth, watching the King get a little bit too personal with Rex, and ultimately fixing the situation between the Kings and the NCR. At level 10, I end up bumping up my survival quite a bit and grabbing the Finesse perk for more crits. This time around, I decided to calmly wager with George before running into the bombardment, talking with Pearl, healing all the patients with the help of a skill book, sitting down and watching a presentation from Pete, repairing all the solar panels for Loyal, and finally grabbing Radchild at level 12. You guys didn't seriously think that we'd get a single run in without Radchild, right? Playing a sound to kill a bunch of ants and returning to Raquel, I prove my worth to the boomers and get the quest to raise the bomber from the bottom of the lake. Jack is more than happy to help me breathe underwater, and I proceed to steal all of their combat armor from the crates within the hangar. Deploying the ballast and raising the bomber, I gain the aid of the boomers. The next plan of attack was dealing with the Brotherhood. Because I didn't feel like getting a slave collar put on my neck, I decided to enlist the aid of Veronica. She allows me to get inside of her family's bunker to be able to steal all the keycards inside without a hitch. This allows me to enable a failsafe and detonate everything before calmly walking outside. Unironically, I think I have bamboozled all of them because I didn't have a single issue when leaving. Wanting to start reaping the benefits from picking up the Radchild perk, I stop over by the Devil's Butthole and kill a bunch of centaurs. This is followed shortly by waiting in a pile full of radiation. I was going to put this perk to the test at Nelson against a bunch of NCR Rangers, but I got a little bit too carried away and ended up starting to attack the Legion, something I didn't want to do this early in the run. Reloading a save and pushing south from Novak to Cottonwood Cove, I run into a bunch of Viper gunslingers. I believe that 2 of these guys had grenade launchers, and I can tell you from experience that no matter how beefy you are, they are not very fun to handle. I also decided to take 5 minutes of my life killing a crap ton of bighorners so I could get a taste of their meat. At level 4, I grabbed yet another useful melee perk, Piercing Strike. While you need unarmed for this, it does reduce the beefiness of certain enemies with high durability. This is especially useful against 10 cans. That's some foreshadowing for you. Once at Cottonwood Cove, I talk with the Colas and meet with the man who makes the best salads. House is a little bit disappointed in me for not coming to see him, but I had different plans for this run, like murdering a crap ton of robots. With how fast the Switchblade is able to swing, and this being further improved later on with the help of more perks and Kims, you are able to apply Super Slam multiple times within a ridiculously short period of time. Even being able to strafe the turrets to avoid taking their full blast saves me quite a lot of damage and allows me to insert the chip into the control panel, thus upgrading the Securitrons. I do return to Kaisar for a little bit of experience, which pushes me over the edge to level 15 for even more melee weapons. At this point, my skills are looking great, but there's still a few more perks that I can obtain to better this character. I end up stopping by Vendertron temporarily to sell a bunch of stuff that I don't need before healing up at the clinic and buying the Perception Implant. I mentioned earlier in this run something about the perk Better Criticals. You need level 6 in Perception to be able to obtain it, and buying this implant pushes us over that edge, which means that the next level we can get better criticals if there are no other contenders. Finally making the decision to side with Yes Man, I kill Mr. House with the best friend of emo middle schoolers. I then set out to try to obtain even more killing sticks. I read on the wiki that the Scorpion gang members tend to have quite a few Switchblades, and that much was true. Popping into the Monte Carlo suites, I net myself 2 additional Switchblades, which again reduces my need to stop for repairs. At level 16, instead of grabbing better criticals like I had just mentioned, I ended up grabbing Unstoppable Force to reduce my headaches anytime I deal with melee attackers. Locking into Vegas is really interesting with the fact that it stuns your opponent. This makes areas that are full of melee enemies, such as the Ultralux, living in hell for early game melee characters. Along with these Scorpion gang members, there is another group of enemies that supposedly have quite a few Switchblades, the Powder Gangers. Popping over to the NCR Correctional Facility, I murder a bunch of them as well. I can't remember the exact number of switchblades that I obtained here, but it was more than one, so I thought it was worth it. One absolute bloodbath later, and I sell all of my junk to Old Lady Gibson and repair all of my switchblades. Wanting a lot more experience to get to level 24 to be able to pick up Slayer, I made the decision to go to Old World Blues. This DLC is interesting, largely for its dialogue and wacky behavior that is reminiscent of the original Fallout games. That being said, when you are trying to speedrun this DLC or even play through it during challenge runs, the enemies typically provide a great level of resistance that is not found in the main game. This sees me running through pretty well every single one of these areas and avoiding everything, but eventually I'm able to obtain the stealth suit, grab better criticals, pick up the antenna array, grab Gabriel's Spark, and at level 20, pick up jury rigging. I never ended up using jury rigging for this run surprisingly, but it's always one of my favorite perks to snag up, especially for the more unique armors. Up until this point, I really haven't came across a particularly challenging part of this DLC that I couldn't just run past. Enter in the X-42 Giant Robo-Scorpion. Obviously, as a melee player, I need to get close to my enemy to be able to put them down, but given how quickly I die when facing this beast head-on, I needed to come up with a different solution. Doing a little bit of light reading, I learned that the drones are a suitable distraction. Utilizing them allows me to hack yet another terminal to turn on some turrets. My first attempt with this strategy did not go very well, and I believe that I was not fast enough as the giant Robo-Scorpion was able to take down both the turrets and the decoys before I could do any suitable amount of damage, thus resulting in my demise. The second time around, I go quite a lot faster and pump even more chems into my supple body to put him down, retrieve my brain, fail at killing the think tank, and aggressively cut all of their wires. A couple of great things about this DLC in terms of rewards is the fact that you do obtain the ability to repair all of your gear to full, which again is really cheap given the fact that our weapons are not very rare. In addition, we pick up a very useful skill for melee players. One of the most annoying things in this game is having a crippled chest. That means you are staggered every time that an enemy ends up hitting your boobs, making melee characters especially susceptible. Being able to prevent that staggering due to the fact that the spineless perk shields us from being crippled in our chest is huge. In addition, the brain-based perk also removes the concussive effect from having a crippled head, which I despise. Selling off all of our gear that we've picked up so far, I am able to purchase the agility, strength, and luck implants. Next up is stopping at Gamora. I talk with the lady with wonderful clavicles, steal a ledger from Kachino, buy some delicious chems, kill Kalennin very carefully in his sleep, buy Troy's contract from Big Sal, plant the thermite, and kill both of the bosses with the help of Turbo. Yet another casino that I ended up working with this time around was the Ultralux. I handled this one, interestingly enough, rather well. I started by talking with Heck Gunderson before hitting up Marjorie for information regarding Ted's disappearance. Mortimer points me in the direction of the investigator and I poke little holes in the ambushers' bodies. This allows me to talk with Chauncey and I end up learning quite a lot about the human anatomy. I'm able to join the White Glove Society with the help of Marjorie before talking with Felipe. Interesting things happen this time around, but essentially what I was able to do is pop a speech skill magazine to encourage him to go check the pantry for a rad roach, and I'm able to lock him inside. This allows me to grab Ted and sneak our way out, thus allowing you to return Ted to Heck and complete the Beyond the Beef quest. Returning to Yes Man, I turn in all the different parts of this quest and meet him over at the Lucky 38 for a fantastic demonstration that I may have watched one too many times. I then save the president by stabbing a guy who's pretending to be another guy and stealing the detonator off of another guy before I straight up walk into the control room at the substation and walk out with no issues from the NCR. I love it when this happens and I'm not sure what exactly causes it, but I believe that it's during the day when they're distracted by another target of some kind. Starting the final battle of Hoover Dam, I go ham on all the Centurions. While I'm not particularly strong in an open gunfight, especially because I'm still wearing the Old World Blues gown, I dish out quite a lot of damage one-on-one, so as long as the majority of the Centurions are distracted by another source, I'm able to dispatch them just fine. I even level up to level 24, which allows me to grab an even more overpowered perk, Slayer. The speed of all melee weapons and unarmed attacks are increased by 30%, which in our case, we are essentially taking a fast melee weapon and making it even faster. Combine Slayer with rushing water and you have a recipe for a lawnmower. Inside, I killed the 2 armored NCR troopers with very little issue thanks to the help of Piercing Strike before redirecting the power to the fort and making my way towards the Legate's camp. These guys here proved to be quite the challenge due to how quickly they can have my health, but with a little bit of strafing and a lot of chems, I'm able to get to the final fight, Legate Lanius. I use all 7 of my remaining turbo and brutally stab him to death as well as his compatriots. I then help the Securitrons kill General Lee Oliver, proving that yes, you can beat Fallen to Vegas only using a Switchblade. Thank you for watching this video. If you'd be interested in seeing more of these videos in the future, consider supporting my Patreon. I've been Al, but do me a favor, will ya? Have a good one.